Hello Electroheads, Tish here and welcome back to the channel. When it comes to electrification, Honda has seemed to put a strong focus on their hybrids, but they've realised that hybrids can no longer be the future of the brand. And between now and 2030, they plan to release 10 electric cars. But let's face it, they're not completely naive when it comes to electrification. The Honda E was one of the first electric mainstream cars. And I say mainstream, but actually Honda don't class it as that. After all, let's face it, it was just like a fancy concept car with all those screens. There was never a focus to make it a mainstream electric vehicle. It was slightly too expensive, there was a bit too much going on, it wasn't very practical, and lastly, it didn't go very far, but it was extremely quirky, and that's why people still lined up to buy them, because it was so much fun. Now, Honda are ready to join the mainstream, and let's hope that they can release a car with longer range, a better price tag, and one that still has all of that Honda quirky fun ability. Introducing the all-new Honda ENY1. This is Honda's latest entry into that mainstream market. So has it achieved those goals that I said about? Well, yes, it does go further than the Honda E. Let's face it, the Honda E could achieve about 100 miles on a good day. This, however, should achieve around 256 miles, which is a far better offering. Is it more affordable? No. Not really. This car starts at £43,000 or just over and goes up to a whopping £47,000 if you go for this higher spec advanced model. Well, at least they've kept all of that Honda quirkiness. Yeah, not really. Not really at all.
Disappointing.
This is a mainstream SUV, which pretty much is like a lot of other cars on the market. And I feel like I'm being negative, but the problem is there is so much competition nowadays. Not only from all the brands that we already know about, the mainstream brands like Hyundai, you've got all the really strong cars from Kia, you've got all of the Volkswagen Group cars, even Ford are having a dip into the market. So to enter into the SUV market right now, this had to be really strong. But my worry is they've just not done enough to take on the rest of the market. In today's video, I'm going to tell you everything I know about the ENY1 and hopefully find some unique selling points that are going to make it worth purchasing this vehicle. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. If you do like electric car news, electric mobility content and electric car content, then this is the place to be. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So let's start by talking about styling, because if you think that this doesn't look new, that may be because you've kind of already seen this around on the roads. It's actually based on the existing hybrid platform of the Honda HR-V. It's got the same platform, it's slightly longer and it's very slightly taller, but it's exactly the same width. Of course, one of the main differences between this and that car is the fact that you have this blanked off front grille. Now, this is one of my favourite parts of this car. So on the front here, you've got a little button which you can pop, and that opens up your charge point, which is really handy. Not too sure about the charge point being on the front of the car. I do know that's up for discussion. Sometimes it's handy if you can pull in, but sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. Let me know, what do you prefer? Now, it does open electrically, which I know some people may find to be a bit of an issue. They have actually recently moved cars' charge points from being at the front to being round the side, for the main reason that if you do get in a front end bump, that may get stuck and then it's difficult to access the charge point. It's also electrically deployed, but you do have to push it shut, but I can't really see that being a bit of an issue. You've got two lights around the front there, which will flash to let you know when the car is charging. They'll flash blue when it's working, and they'll actually flash red when something is wrong. I do really love this colour. I know it's going to be very controversial and it's going to be very contrasting, especially talking to people today. Some people love it, like me, and some people hate it, like some of the men in the room.
Men.
but I think it does make this car look just a little bit different from everything else out there. Now, if you want something which is a bit more palatable, you can also get it in a white, you can get it in a grey, a black and a red. Now, talking about that price point, it's already pretty pricey, starting over £43,000. But actually, the only colour which comes as free is black. So if you do want any other colours, then they're going to cost you a little bit more. I do really like the contrasting black gloss. You've got along the bottom, you've also got the wing mirrors. And because this car is the top spec with the panoramic sunroof or part split sunroof, you do have a black roof as well, which I'll show you properly in a moment. I do also really like the little flashes of chrome around the bodywork, but overall, it's nothing spectacular to what we've already seen. Being not based on an electric car platform may have already put some of you off, but Honda insist that when they built the HR-V and the ENY1, they always planned for that platform to be able to accommodate both hybrid and electric, so there's no loss of practicality. The batteries are packaged under the floor, so that does help with handling on the road, and it hasn't lost any interior space compared to the hybrid car. In fact, it has gained a bit of boot space, which I'll talk about in a moment. But what is a shame is they haven't managed to put any storage underneath the bonnet. No longer is there an engine, and there is a big space under there. So it would have been really nice if they had added some extra storage. Now, inside the boot, you get just under 450 litres of space, which is about right for this class of car. It's very similar to cars like the Hyundai Kona. And though it may not be massive, I do think it's practical enough. There's plenty for shopping or going on holiday for a small family. You do get this flexible kind of parcel shelf, which I think is quite handy. It's easy to store away and it doesn't get in the way. Now, as I mentioned, there is 10 more litres of boot space compared to the hybrid HR-V. And that's because the batteries of the HR-V are in the boot, whereas with this car, they're underneath the car floor. So you get some additional storage in the boot where you can put your charging cables away and things like that. You've also got a boot which will drop down further as well. The real shame again though is the fact that though it's more practical in the fact that you get more space in the boot, because the batteries are underneath the floor, it means that you don't get the magic seats that you get in the HR-V. And this was a real big selling point of the HR-V. In fact, it's fantastic for wheelchair users because the seats fold all the way out and you can get a wheelchair into the back of the car, which was super handy. And it's a real shame that this electric car can't do the same. Moving on to the rear of the car, and these doors open reasonably wide, so that makes it easy for lifting items in, getting child seats in, and just getting into the back of the car as well. I'm really glad to see that there's no transmission tunnel, so seating for 3 passengers should be more than practical. You've also got quite a few little amenities back here. We've got nice door pockets, not always a given nowadays. 2 USB-C charging ports, a little bit of storage. I've got a pull-out armrest, although doesn't exactly feel the best quality, but you do have 2 cup holders. And in fact, there's actually space for 4 cups because you've got cup holders in the door as well, and a little bit of storage in the door pocket. Nothing underneath, but there is a little bit where you'd rest your arm, which I actually think is quite handy, and it does feel nice and comfortable back here. Just like the rest of the car, it is high quality, everything's very soft, even all the way up to the tops of the doors. It's not cheap plastic, it does actually feel quite hard wearing. It's got a reclined position, I've got plenty of legroom, lots of headroom. I actually think the back of this car is one of its strong points. I must say that despite Honda prices going up and up, their quality has also come with it. Quality inside the cabin of this electric car is on par with all of their other products in the range, and that's very good news. Everything is really high quality and it's also very sturdy as well. It feels well built. I love these seats. They're actually synthetic leather. There's no animal product, which I really love to hear. And I like the way you get the blue piping around them, and you've also got the white as well. That looks fantastic, very cohesive. You also have a leather wrapped dash with the blue and white stitching. Very nice.
Very nice.
There is a bit of gloss black down the centre console, which I wouldn't think would be a problem if I haven't seen their other ZR-V product. The ZR-V has a very nice cushioned centre console which feels much more high quality than this gloss black one, so I would have liked to have seen that in this ENY1, but it's not too bad, it's not too offensive. You've got 2 cup holders, a bit of storage up front with some wireless charging, which is standard across the range. The gear selectors, these are slightly different to other cars that you may have driven. They're simply buttons, and they do take a little bit of getting used to, but honestly, once you're used to them, they're actually quite handy to use. You'll also find your electronic parking brake, and you've also got some automatic parking in this top spec version, which is pretty nice. Storage is not fantastic. It's not great. You've got a little bit of storage in the center console, and you've got a little bit of storage up where you pop your wireless charging phone, but I would have really liked to have seen more. I would have liked to have seen them utilise the space in the fact that this doesn't need a transmission tunnel. So you don't need all of this area. There could be space underneath that's not being utilised. The glove box is a pretty average size, and you've also got some nice door cards which will put a bottle of water in them, and there's a little bit of extra storage up here as well. It's not bad, I just don't think it's class leading and they could have done better. Now let's talk about specification, because it is very good. I would hope so for the price of this car. Now, the entry-level version does get wireless charging, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Apple CarPlay is wireless, but you will need it to be wired if you're using your Android Auto. Satellite navigation is standard, adaptive cruise control is, a rear view camera is standard with 360, but if you go for this top spec model, you get that automatic parking. You also get a surround upgraded sound system in this top spec model, although it's not said anywhere what brand it is, which I find a little bit odd. I'm not really sure why they've chosen to do that. Other things that you get which are very nice: heated seats, a heated steering wheel. It's got pretty much everything you'd want, but I would expect it at this price. It is a little bit disappointing that you do have to go for the top spec car if you want to get the panoramic sunroof and if you want to get an electric tailgate as well. Maybe not the pan roof, but the tailgate I would have liked to have seen included on all versions of this car. Now let's talk about this sunroof. This is a £47,000 car, and I have got a manual blind, which is not that great, and it doesn't open either, which is a shame. Of course, when it comes to electric cars, you do want to maximise your range, and a opening sunroof is going to create drag, but it still would have been nice to have it as an option, and yeah, not really impressed by this. But you think that's weird? Let me show you the one in the back. Now, I did ask for quirky, but this wasn't really what I was going for, Honda. What is this? It's like a manual clippage system. Surely not. I almost feel like I shouldn't have complained about the one in the front. Now, I'm not too sure if this comes included or if it's some sort of package. I'm almost hoping that it doesn't come included, because this seems a very, very odd choice for a cover for the back. Would you need it? Probably not. I'm guessing this is if you've got really young children and you want to create a blackout blind. That is why you're given this as an option. But yeah, I'm not a fan of that. And whilst I have given this car a little bit of tough love, I do think the range of just over 250 miles is pretty accurate for this class of car. Of course, this car is slightly more expensive than some of its rivals, so maybe we'd want a little bit more range, but in hindsight, I don't think it's too bad of an offering. In theory, if what Honda claims is correct, then charging could be positive for the ENY1, as long as you're not planning on rapid charging often. Honda have prioritised maintaining maximum charge, of which is 78 kilowatts, for longer compared to its rivals, rather than going for a big headline figure. That means that 10 to 80% will take around 45 minutes. However, this theory will definitely need testing, and no positive charging curve will beat the Koreans with their 800 volt technology, for example in the EV6 and the Ioniq 5. My only concern is whether it'll actually be able to achieve those figures. Now remember, this is early days of this car and also early days of this exact car. So that means it's still learning your driving styles and learning how much range you can get out of it. But at the moment, I'm seeing 90% charge and 196 miles.
What?
Which doesn't quite work out, does it? That's a little bit of a shame, and I have checked and it doesn't change depending what driving mode you're in. So I'm currently in econ mode. If I change to normal, or if I change to sport, the range of 196 miles stays exactly the same. Now you'll probably find that this is something which, once you've spent some time with the car, it will learn your driving styles and it will adapt the range depending on those. But at the moment, that's a little bit of a disappointment. The steering also doesn't change much between those modes. So in sport right now, it's really heavy, it feels well weighted. And then as I switch into normal and eco, steering feels exactly the same. That is a positive because I do like a weightier steering. It makes the car feel more engaging, and actually even when you're in econ mode, it drives just like a Honda, and that's a brilliant thing because Hondas are really well known for their handling. Of course, this car has also got the batteries packaged in the bottom of the floor, so centre of gravity is really good, and that means it does hug the road when you're driving. Of course, you do feel a difference in the acceleration when it comes to these different modes. In sports mode, you get a much more aggressive uptake in that power. Now the 0 to 62 time is around 7.5 seconds, I believe. If somebody could check that and pop it on the screen, the official figure, that would be great. And that is pretty good for this class of car. It's faster than most of the Stellantis group products. It does have regenerative braking, and you can adjust the regenerative braking using the paddles on the back of the steering wheel. So left will turn it up and right will turn it down. Strangely, I have found that it always keeps turning it down. I turn it up, and then when I go to turn it up again, it seems to have be turned back down. Maybe that's just as I'm moving between the different modes, I'm not too sure. But I am going to do a bit of a test when it comes to the regenerative braking because I don't think it's particularly strong. So what we're going to do is we're going to accelerate up to 40 miles per hour and then lift off. This is in the strongest regenerative braking mode. Yeah, it's taken that long to get to 30 and we're still crawling. So it's definitely not a one pedal drive. And to me, this is a bit of a disappointment. This is something they can improve in the future because let's face it, this really is Honda's first proper go at an electric car. But where I do think they have excelled is in the driving engagement. So it really is, as I mentioned, spot on Honda. So it does feel super, super comfortable. There's really limited road noise thanks to some of the kind of soundproofing they've put into the battery. They've done some clever kind of things with the wheels, which includes, I think it's like a cushioning around the inside of the wheel which absorbs some of the noise, so it is nice and refined and quiet, but it does still feel super engaging, and actually I don't think it feels that far apart from Honda's hybrid products, and that to me is not a bad thing. I promise that when it comes to this car, I have tried to be as positive as possible. You see, the problem is I love Honda as a brand. They have a lot of heritage and some of their cars are very, very interesting. Also, their hybrid engines are completely different to everything else on the market, and that justifies a slightly higher price tag. But the problem is, you see, when it comes to this fully electric car, it's not too different to anything else on the market, and that's a real shame because they're asking for a very, very strong price. And at that point, it becomes a little bit harder to recommend. But let me know, what do you think of the Honda ENY1? Have I been a little bit harsh? If I have, please do tell me off. Let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Want to see more? Then go ahead and hit the subscribe button and join the Electroheads channel. Okay, until next time guys, see you later.